This message comes from Capital One. With the Spark Cash Plus card, you earn unlimited 2% cash back on every purchase for your business. Find out more at CapitalOne.com/SparkCashPlus. Terms apply.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. I'm going to give you a little behind-the-scenes moment here and level with you all. I am in dire need of a new couch. It's done me well for years, but now it's just a miserable experience to sit on. And I've been slacking on getting a new one because every time I get to that checkout page online, typing in my credit card number for a $4,000 couch just doesn't feel right. But on every checkout page, I kept coming across an alternative payment option. Right under credit card, Apple Pay, PayPal was the option to get my couch now and break my payment down into installments using Klarna, Affirm, or Afterpay. This was new to me, but I would come to find out that these companies were offering buy now, pay later loans.
Buy now, pay later loans are exactly what they sound like. They're a form of credit that allows you to buy something now and pay for it later.
That is NPR Life Kit's Andy Tagle. And I called her up to walk me through this payment plan because I was very familiar with layaway, where a store holds a large purchase for you as you pay it off in installments. But getting the product up front and paying for it over time, that was new to me. But according to Andy, it's pretty popular, and for good reason.
I'd split the user base into two main categories of heavy buy now, pay later users. So there are young people, and then there are people with poor or limited credit history. And the reason for that is because the barrier to entry is a lot lower for buy now, pay later loans than your typical credit card or bank loan. A lot of them have completely interest-free options. Other ones, it might be a little bit of a sliding scale.
Buy now, pay later is also user-friendly. It's integrated into your online shopping experience at the point of sale or on the product page itself. You can even download the Klarna or Affirm app to shop at your favorite stores all at once and track your purchases. All kinds of people use buy now, pay later. But with such a low barrier to entry and easy access, you can imagine young people really flock to these loans.
There was a law passed a while ago that limited how aggressively credit card companies could market to college-age kids. And so the buy now, pay later market has really opened up to people over 18 but under 25.
But like with most things, there are some downsides.
One of the disadvantages is that they're really good at getting you to want to get out another loan. That technology is super specific to your data. They can also use that specific technology to market the things that you like to buy. Those impulse purchases are specific to you. They're specific to your data. That bathing suit that you've gone to 26 times in the past however many months. And they have a credit limit based on what they know you can spend or what you might be willing to spend.
That floored me. In our chat, Andy compared it to the grocery store. You know, that area right before in front of the cashier where there are snacks, gum, and soda for you to buy last minute. If you have an app that offers buy now, pay later loans, the app curates that little section just for you. But it doesn't stop there.
BNPL companies also offer physical cards that you can take with you into brick and mortar. And they also offer tap-to-buy options. So even if there isn't an official partnership, you can use buy now, pay later.
In my mind, I'm like, it looks like a bank, it quacks like a bank. And it kind of sounds like it hits all of the same sensory cues as shopping or buying anything with any other card. And since it is so similar, if a young person uses buy now, pay later to get on their feet, wouldn't they eventually just transition over to a credit card anyway?
The thing about that is, they use it and then they like it, and then when they do reach an age where they can get credit cards, they stick to BNPL because they know it and it's easier.
And that ease is helped by a market rapidly changing to meet demand. Places like Amazon, Walmart, and Target offer buy now, pay later options. Costco just announced its own buy now, pay later program. And according to a LendingTree survey, 25% of buy now, pay later users use the loans for everyday purchases like groceries. But what stopped me in my tracks was the news that Klarna partnered with DoorDash so customers could eat now, pay later. It made me skeptical if making this type of payment the norm is wise. Because even though buy now, pay later is an easier form of credit to use, it doesn't necessarily have the same protections as a traditional credit card. But maybe that's the point.
Uber, when it was first founded, was called Uber Cab. And when they discovered that that would mean that they were subject to all of these regulations that the cab industry was subject to, their strategy was to chop the name cab off. So they were just Uber.
That is author Malcolm Harris. We had him on the show a while back to talk about his book, Palo Alto, A Comprehensive History of Silicon Valley. I reached out to him after hearing that Klarna partnered with DoorDash. I wondered about the risks of a necessity like food entering the buy now, pay later universe. But according to Malcolm, that's actually not what this is about.
So what the product is with DoorDash or any of these other food delivery services is that convenience. And honestly, if I'm looking a few steps down the line and I'm thinking, what are the plans for these industries? Tech has been looking at attempts to disrupt the credit score industry for a long time. And they're generating the kind of data that you would need to offer an alternative kind of credit score.
That's when it dawned on me. Klarna and Affirm are financial tech companies.
We saw the same pattern of activity with cab companies and Uber and Lyft, for example, where you had big deep-pocketed investors who were financing these companies at a loss in order to build up market position and a user base and change people's habits at a really fundamental way into this phone-mediated convenience access.
And after hearing the news Klarna doubled its losses in the first quarter, it made me wonder, are we seeing the fallout from the infamous millennial lifestyle subsidy? This is Money Troubles. And for the past few weeks, we've been looking into the ways everyday people are trying to make ends meet and what it says about how our culture views labor, basic needs, or even our favorite pastimes. In this final episode, author Malcolm Harris joins me to get into how cheap credit may be just another lifestyle subsidy for a new generation. And when the bill comes due, who pays? I'm wondering, how did the millennial lifestyle subsidy that we're talking about and its fallout bring us to this buy now, pay later for everything moment?
Yeah, I think Klarna and Affirm and any of these other buy now, pay later companies are really inserting themselves as the solution to this problem of how do you pay for the last round of internet services? How do you pay for the rising costs that come with Airbnb and come with Uber and come with the destruction of the previous industries? How are you going to pay for the extra fees that come at the end of every subscription? Every service that you're buying is going to come with these paying back those investors in those services at the last round. And I think buy now, pay later is a button you can click at the end to make it that much easier to afford those things. So it doesn't surprise me that food delivery is like a natural for using one of these services, even if we think of consumer credit as traditionally more useful for larger purchases. Mm-hmm. The way it inserts itself there right at the checkout and is able to do so really naturally in the internet landscape, that's part of the users becoming accustomed to buying things online, to shopping online. As far as the legal protections go, it's a really interesting question, and it's one that's still up in the air. In the summer of 2024, the Consumer Financial Protection Board issued an interpretation that basically said buy now, pay later providers are credit card providers. That buy now, pay later is a credit card for almost all intents and purposes. It's not an open-ended line of credit in the same way that credit cards are, because it's for specific purchases. Mm-hmm. But that the users of buy now, pay later services were entitled to some of the same protections that credit card users were entitled to, such as being able to dispute a charge and having that resolved regularly. Mm-hmm. And, credit card providers don't offer all these services because they're swell people or because they're, competing for the most business. They do it because they're regulated by the Truth in Lending Act, which is a 1968 law that says, this is what an APR is. These are the disclosures you have to make. This is how you have to dispute charges. So for the CFPB to come out and say But this buy now, pay later stuff is just an internet wrapper on a credit card. It was, I think, a blow to the industry. And we've seen now with the Trump administration's efforts to eviscerate the CFPB, they issued a new interpretation in May of 2025 saying, never mind about that other thing. We're trying to undo it. We're not going to focus on buy now, pay later providers. And in fact, we're looking at repealing that whole interpretation.
I think about that, and I also think about the fact, though, that if you did get behind on payments or you didn't pay for something, it wasn't going to be reported to a credit bureau. But as of the past few months, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion are trying to change this. So it kind of sounds like consumers are approaching a situation with buy now, pay later, where if you get behind on Affirm or Klarna or whatever credit payments, you could potentially end up with bad credit. So you don't have any of the protections, but also you end up being responsible for any dings against your account with Klarna or Affirm or whatever. Seems kind of freaky.
Well, and that would be in the industry's interest, right? And especially if, as we've seen in these first months of the new administration, if they're going to take out the regulator, right? If the CFPB isn't going to exist or can't function, and they are the ones who have put themselves out there and said, we're going to look at this industry. And the Trump administration has already come in and said, no, you're not. No, we're not. Then what rules they end up following are sort of, they're on their own, right? Yeah, alarming and scary. And honestly, if I'm looking a few steps down the line and I'm thinking, what are the plans for these industries? Tech has been looking at attempts to disrupt the credit score industry for a long time. And they're generating the kind of data that you would need to offer an alternative kind of credit score. And so I would not be surprised, especially if one company, whether it's Klarna or one of the other ones, is to start issuing their own Klarna score, right?
Oh my gosh.
The credit reporting industry is ripe for disruption and has been for a long time. And this would be the kind of body of data that you would need to try something like that seriously.
Coming up,
I don't think we're the Uber generation because we loved taking Ubers or whatever. We were the Uber generation because capitalists saw an advantage in investing tons and tons and tons of money in these cab services. And we absorbed that and it changed our lifestyle. And that's where that money went. And the bill has come due.
Who pays when the lifestyle is no longer subsidized?
This message comes from Sattva. Sleeping well can boost your mood and improve focus. A Sattva luxury mattress can help you experience that kind of sleep. Save $600 on $1,000 or more at sattva.com/NPR.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from Mint Mobile. Summer is just around the corner. You may break a sweat, but don't break the bank. Get your summer savings at Mint Mobile. Shop premium wireless plans for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/minute. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5GB plan required. New customer offer for first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
This message comes from Schwab. At Schwab, how you invest is your choice, not theirs. That's why when it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices. You can invest and trade on your own. Plus, get advice and more comprehensive wealth solutions to help meet your unique needs. With award-winning service, low costs, and transparent advice, you can manage your wealth your way at Schwab. Visit schwab.com to learn more.
Support for NPR and the following message come from Rosetta Stone, the perfect app to achieve your language learning goals no matter how busy your schedule gets. It's designed to maximize study time with immersive 10-minute lessons and audio practice for your commute. Plus, tailor your learning plan for specific objectives like travel. Get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off and unlimited access to 25 language courses. Learn more at rosettastone.com/NPR.
Oh my gosh. Okay. My brain already was broken, I think, the first time that I understood that credit scores didn't exist for my parents. You mentioned in your pre-interview that this regulatory disruption is a common part of tech and Silicon Valley companies. Are there other examples of this?
Yeah, I mean, and they call it disruption, right? Disruption is the nice gloss that you put on regulatory arbitrage, because so many of these business models are about continuing a previously existing business model, but dodging the regulations. So Uber is a great example, because Uber, when it was first founded, was called Uber Cab. And when they discovered that that would mean that they were subject to all of these regulations that the cab industry was subject to, their strategy was to chop the name cab off. So they were just Uber.
Wow.
And then they were an internet service for riders or whatever. And so that's how they could dodge all of the cab industry regulations, which was the key to their success, because they'd been subject to all the industry regulations. They never could have got off the ground. Same thing is absolutely true with Airbnb, which is not a hotel service, obviously, which hotels are heavily regulated. We shouldn't be surprised to see a regulatory arbitrage strategy from buy now, pay later.
Well, one last thing. In your pre-interview with our producer, Alexis, and this surprised me, you mentioned that these lifestyle subsidies have been happening for generations. And I had to say that stood out to me, because I think when people talk about the millennial lifestyle subsidy, they're talking specifically about my generation. They're talking about Uber, they're talking about Airbnb, they're talking about DoorDash, all of these companies that we just discussed. But you say that this is somewhat of a repeating strategy, just in a different costume or something like that. But you also said the most important question is, when the bill comes, who pays? Can you break down this idea, this concept that there's always some type of lifestyle subsidy that hits different generations in different ways?
Yeah, I mean, we can look at the boomer generation, for example, as heavily subsidized by government programs of highway building, of housing loan subsidies that provided a whole generation with cheap houses that they can own, a whole road complex that they could drive on and enjoy. And we see the whole lifestyle that's built on that, right? There was a whole generation that came to understand itself in relation to cars and the highway system, for example. And that was heavily subsidized by the state decision to build that highway system. So I don't think we're the Uber generation because we loved taking Ubers or whatever. We were the Uber generation because capitalists saw an advantage in investing tons and tons and tons of money in these cab services. And we absorbed that, and it changed our lifestyle. And that's where that money went. And the bill has come due. And now we're a generation that spends a sort of ridiculous amount of our income on taking cars around places. But that's how our lifestyle has been shaped by the investment decisions of a relatively small group of people. And now we're seeing it to a really absurd degree to change how we live, to be dependent on these services.
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, I mean, I think it was an article from New York Magazine that came out recently talking to a lot of young college students and seeing how it's such a short span of time. I mean, these tools have been available for a couple of years to be used, like ChatGPT, in the way that students seem to be using them now for school. And the dependence on them is pretty immediate. There are so many young people that feel like they can't do school without these AI tools. It seems that if the goal were to develop user dependence on a tool, then that has been accomplished.
Very quickly, right?
Yeah.
But at a huge cost, hundreds of billions of dollars, just sublime amounts of money invested into these services that are really, like you said, transforming the way that people do everything in their lives. And you can think about that as a lifestyle subsidy, quote unquote, right? Because young people are getting all these answers to their homework and don't have to pay for them or whatever. That the compute required to produce these things that people are using costs way more than they're paying for them. I don't think that's necessarily the right way to think about it. It's more like they're shaping the way that we live through their investment decisions, to which they are not accountable to us, right? They've set up a situation in which they know that people are going to use these services. They're providing them below their cost. They're flooding the market with these services. But the real risk is that we lose the ability not to use them. and that we lose the ability to like read critically and think for ourselves, which is sort of analogous to the ability to like flag down a cab or to like take a bus if you need to go somewhere.
Figure out how to give someone directions or read a map.
Right?
Yeah, or
Right.
call a restaurant and order your meal. Yeah.
Right. That these are the things that we lose. And so we can think about it as like a subsidy or whatever, but I think we maybe are better off thinking about it as a change to the way we live.
Malcolm, you've really given me a lot to think about today.
Always my goal.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us again. I really, really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Brittany.
That was NPR Life Kit's Andy Tagle and author Malcolm Harris. His newest book, What's Left? 3 Paths Through the Planetary Crisis, is out now. And I'm going to put on my influencer hat for a second and ask you to please subscribe to this show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. Click follow so you know the latest in culture while it's still hot. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Alexis Williams.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Learning. IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid no matter the age or personality. Get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when you sign up today at IXL.com/NPR. This message comes from Bombas. Nearly 30% of marathoners end their race blistered. Bombas running socks are strategically cushioned to help say bye to blisters. Run to bombas.com/NPR and use code NPR for 20% off your first purchase. Support for NPR and the following message come from IXL Learning. IXL Learning uses advanced algorithms to give the right help to each kid no matter the age or personality. Get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when you sign up today at IXL.com/NPR.